Before Aaron Sandilands was afflicted by turf toe, Ruzi, my view was that he could be the most influential player in the competition.
Yep.
There's been some signs recently that he can again be that. Mumford's form at the weekend would indicate that he's probably as well equipped as anyone to try to neutralise Sandilands. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, well, the Mumford-Pike combination. I mean, Sandilands, it's interesting, Freo have never really been able to capitalise on the dominance. I mean, they did against the Cats 2 weeks ago. So you're right. I mean, at his absolute best, Sandilands, no one can ruck against him. You know, you just got to try and nullify him. And then it's a matter of your midfield stoppages. I'm sure that the Swans midfield coach will be looking at Sandilands' hit. This is nothing against Mumford at all and nothing against Pike. But you're going to have to be reading the hit off the opposition. And then Sandilands can flip it outside, he can flip it all over the place. But I think you're right, Mumford and Pike are pretty well equipped to at least really compete hard against him.
But we know what he can do in the ruck. I think, for mine, it's his stuff in the goal square there now that's getting better and better and better, and it's a massive X factor.
That's true, but 2 weeks ago we saw him, I don't know whose fault it was a couple of years ago when he was getting his hands on the ball and it wasn't going to the Freo box, but they're reading him a lot better now, aren't they?
Yeah, and their midfield depth is great. I mean, they've got high-end quality we talked about before, I think, with Joel. I was surprised that they didn't get at least one midfielder in the All-Australian team. I mean, they've got some real depth through the midfield now, and it just takes time. I think they are reading his hit a bit better. They've got their half-forwards coming up now with Ross Lyon, so you've got Ballantyne and Walter on the outside. You know, so you've got to cover the inside players, you've got to cover the outside players, and he can be a pretty dominant presence.
One of the blokes to get a hold of Ryan Crowley this year was Dan Hanbury up in Sydney. Not big numbers, but a big impact. 4 goals in the tie up there. Do you think that Crowley will go to Hanbury again?
Well, it's an interesting one, and this is the difficulty for Freo with Crowley, because you've got, I mean, who would you put him to? Hanbury did kick 4, I think, in the first quarter. You've got McVeigh that's in outstanding form. You've got Kieran Jack, who's probably the best two-way running midfielder, All-Australian in the competition. So this is a big call. You've got Joey Kennedy, who's sort of the inside lifeblood of the team. So, I mean, this is a big matchup for Ross Lyon to work out who... I wouldn't think you'd go to Hanbury. I mean, the fact that Hanbury beat him before...
Would he go to McVeigh?
He could go to McVeigh.
If McVeigh sets it all up.
Yeah, I'd say McVeigh or Kieran Jack. I think they were the two that he'd probably more likely to... Not that Hanbury's any less important, but I think that psychological advantage that Hanbury gets over him after that one, give him to someone else, and then I'd say it'd be McVeigh or Jack.
Looking at the job that McVeigh did on Carlton, he'd have to be pretty close with him.
He would, I would agree with that. But they're going to let... Some of the Freo boys are going to run free, aren't they?
Yeah, no, that's right.
Like a Stephen Hill or a Fife or someone.
Yeah, no, it's a great midfield battle. I mean, you look at Barlow and Mundy and Fife.
No, apparently you're not allowed to tag Barlow. You just have to let him run free.
That's right. He comes up from a half-forward, so you've got to watch him as well. You've got the half-forwards coming up. Both teams do that, so it's going to be great matchups all over the field.
This time last week I asked you if the Swans were cooked. To me, they did look a bit fatigued and as if they'd just about run out of juice. But we know what happened. They found another level. But if you look at the numbers and the minutes played, it's got to be a significant factor coming in once again. Here's the numbers for the Swans. Tied is the headline, but they didn't look tired over the weekend, and they're up in the 2,500 minutes. And you compare it to the Fremantle Dockers, they've had 2 weeks rest out of 4 for many of them, and they should be fresher, but it doesn't always count.
Well, the Swans midfield are a really fit group. I mean, they're a hardened group. They're a mature group. They've had a lot of pre-season into them, Mike. I mean, that's probably a slight advantage to Freo. The back end of the year, you're playing...
Only slight?
Oh, well, I think at this time of year it's slight, but that can sometimes be enough. But it's a big ground. But I reckon that's going to be a really pivotal battle. I don't expect the Swans, by any stretch of the imagination, to wave the white flag. That's going to be a really tough contest.
They won't do that.
Yeah. Michael Johnson back in the side, named All-Australian for the first time. There is a suggestion that Garrick Ibbotson is trying, but given that he's had...
It's 6 weeks out for him, is it?
Well, nearly 2 months out, 6 weeks out. He would have to be a long shot, you'd say.
Yeah, and he's an important player. I mean, he's certainly one that's going to a lot of debate at selection. There's no doubt about it. He had a fantastic start to the season.
I don't see a vulnerable area in the Freo makeup. With Sandilands back in form. Do you? Do you think that they're soft or they're fragile in any one department?
Not really, although they can't really go tall in the forward line. Probably that's if you were sort of. I mean, Pavlich he doesn't play necessarily huge, and you've got Main coming out of the goal. So, I mean, you can push Sandilands down there, but it takes him out of the ruck. Probably just that ability to bomb the ball in. They need to square it up a little bit, and it's I don't think it's a weakness, but it's just, if you're looking at their team, you'd probably say, they're going to have to lower their eyes. They're going to have to hit their targets.
Well, they've had one crack at each other this year. It was in round 8, and not much was decided there, Mike. The Swans were about 30 points up with 10 minutes of play remaining, and then Michael Johnson went back and levelled it all up.
Yeah, this one, I think that was the one that Ross Lyon said should have been punched through. But I'm not sure. We saw the ins and outs before. I'm not sure this game has too much relevance for what's happening now.
I agree with that. No, I think the ins for Freo are pretty significant.
Yeah, they are. Yeah. And look, I just think both teams' midfield groups are going to decide this. The one that really gets on top. And going into the game, it's hard to see a clear advantage. We talked about the numbers and the minutes. But in terms of pure talent, they're really even in that midfield battle. It's
a fantastic game. It's going to be great to watch it unfold. We've spoken about the problems if the Swans win. They'll be getting back at 6 a.m. But there's a big job to do before they get across the line for the Dockers. And it's an historical moment for the Dockers too, Mike. If they can get themselves into their first grand final, that's a mighty effort.
They are very credible in this. They are right in the premiership race, aren't they?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think if you weren't on the Dockers for a potential premiership after they beat Geelong at Geelong, everyone had to be. That's not to say they're definitely going to get over Sydney. We know at this time of the year every single match is hard, but certainly they're a legitimate premiership chance.